There's an ant on our baby monitor. It's distracting me.
Welcome to Inchworm,
The podcast in which we're inching through worm. I'm Jenny.
and I'm Ted.
And I'm Claire.
Yay, Claire!
Yay! Welcome, Claire! Another guest host. This is our
Yes.
friend Claire. You may recognize her from Discord, and she is the person who got me into Worm.
A celebrity.
I
What?
think Claire coined the term Inchworm Grandma.
Yes, I did say that. I'm not really sure if it makes sense, but
We could workshop it.
Yeah.
I feel like you might just be like the inchworm parent.
maybe I'm your inchworm grandma.
Oh,
But
you're
then
my inchworm. You're my worm
this is
grandma,
just
and
getting
you're
weird.
Ted's grandparent.
Yeah.
Wait.
No, Ted's worm parent.
But maybe she's our Inchworm daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little... Are our guest hosts our children?
Yes, let's
There are a lot
decide
of
that
layers
now,
here.
even though it's very strange. Yes, okay, so Claire is both the grandmother, mother, and daughter of this podcast.
Perfect.
Great superpower.
Well, Claire, why don't you introduce yourself? Just like, how'd you hear about Worm? Why did you get me into it? You know, let the listeners know.
Right. So I think I heard about it through reading the much inferior work, Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality.
Oh.
No,
I mean, that's how a lot of people heard about it, right?
I don't know that we've
was a
talked
big
about it on the
boost.
podcast yet. Yeah.
It is how a lot of people heard about it. And I'm very glad to have not really thought about that in a long time and, you know, not done anything related to that in a long time and still be very into Worm.
It was worth it. Got you to worm.
Absolutely. So I read Worm very quickly, which means with a work this length that I was just like up for multiple nights straight and just like really going off the deep end, by the time I got to the end of Worm.
That was my experience too.
I think I was sort of recommending Worm to anybody who would listen to me, and Ted actually did listen to me, unlike most people who I recommended it to. So I'm very glad.
Shall we transition into the episode?
Yeah, should we talk about this interlude 5?
Yeah, well,
First of all, I was so bad at predicting what this interlude is going to be about. I just keep expecting the heroes to come back into things because, like, they've sort of just been this outstanding element we haven't visited in so long. But no, we're seeing Faultline's crew, which I had said in the last episode, like, I want to see more of them. And yet I did not at all predict that we were immediately going to see more of them.
yeah.
Which
yeah.
feels very foolish in
And
retrospect.
It's so fun because it was a sort of like classic, I don't know if that makes sense, interlude, because it's entirely divorced from the plot. It's like
True,
setting details,
yeah.
it's character stuff and theme stuff.
Yeah,
but
you
like,
get the sense it is happening at the same time, but like there's only one vague reference to like the
yeah.
collaboration
And like I
between
think
the
Interlude
teams.
2 was like a little bit like this, but the exposition we got was like about the villains in the city was
Right,
very connected to
Yes.
what had happened in the first.
And this isn't really connected to the larger villain scene in Brockton Bay. It's really just about this crew, and then some like national stuff
Yeah.
or global stuff
Yeah.
even.
It's
So
very exciting. So
very exciting.
I think that I should summarize this interlude.
Yeah, go for it.
Sounds good.
We start at the beginning of the interlude. A teenager has a paper bag of stuff and is giving it to our interlude point of view character, who we learn quickly is Gregor the Snail. Gregor the Snail has employed this guy to shop for him. He's made some basic shopping requests. He's paying this guy very well to do his shopping for him, to be a personal shopper. The reason he's doing it this way is because as a, for lack of a better term, monstrous cape, he feels uncomfortable doing it himself, and this is a much easier way to get his basic necessities. They have a pretty detailed conversation, Gregor and this man he's employing, and after it wraps up, we get a little bit of Gregor's reflection on what it's like being a monstrous cape as he walks back to Palanquin, the nightclub where he and the rest of Faultline's crew are currently based. He walks right up to the front door. The bouncer lets him in, some assholes in the line call him out for cutting the line, but he's a VIP, so he gets in, and he goes right upstairs. In the upstairs balcony over the nightclub, Gregor runs into Newter and two girls, as well as a number of unconscious other people who have been knocked out by Newter's saliva serum, I guess. I don't know. He doesn't have a cool coinage for
Newter's
it.
bespoke
hallucinogen. We should come up with what he should market it as.
Neuters do? No.
Ooh,
Neuters do.
So they do.
And we learn that Gregor has been out for sandwiches. He brings a sandwich for Newter. He informs these girls, I'm so sorry I don't have sandwiches for you because I didn't know. It's a very sweet, polite interaction. So basically what we learn is that people come to Newter because the hallucinogens he deals out of his mouth don't seem to have any apparent side effects. Newter, we learn, is a teenager. He's a very bro-y teenager. He loves having these attractive young women kind of fawning over him or with him, and he has been telling stories about Faultline's crew's jobs in other cities as a kind of preamble to him basically knocking them out. And Gregor observes that one of the girls is kind of freaked out by him and his physical appearance, whereas one of the other girls is not. And Newter kind of tries to chat Gregor up, being like, hey, that girl, she seemed to be into you. And Gregor's like, well, I don't know. The stuff that she was saying to me, it was almost too forward. I think she might be into me because I'm different and monstrous looking and not actually because of who I am. And Newter's like, no, come on, man. It doesn't have to be like that. And so we get this kind of difference in how they're relating to non-capes differently. We can get into that whole interaction more, but Gregor retreats. He has more sandwiches to deliver. He gets into kind of the back, more secure area, goes into a bedroom where two people are staying, two girls named Emily and Elle, who we learn are the real names of Spitfire and Labyrinth. Gregor makes sure that Labyrinth eats her sandwich, even though...
I just realized at one point last chapter, Newter called Labyrinth L, and I thought it was just short for Labyrinth, but it turns out it's her name.
Oh,
yeah.
Good observation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gregor makes sure that Labyrinth eats her sandwich, or at least gets started, because she's having a bad day, where she's kind of more dissociated, kind of closed off. And we learn a little bit more about Labyrinth's background, which maybe we'll talk about. Then Gregor goes to kind of the next room along the corridor and finds Faultline. Faultline is in the middle of a science experiment. She is trying to use her power on various materials. She's able to successfully break apart wood, metal, stone, plastic, but is also testing green wood closer to more organic matter and finding that her power does not affect them. And she talks to Gregor about this, basically she's trying to see if she can overcome the Manton effect, which, as a reminder, is the fact that powers tend to work only on people or only on things or only on organic stuff and not inorganic stuff, or vice versa. And she speculates a little bit is it a psychological block? Is it because we're trying to protect ourselves from our power the way that a pyrokinetic is often fireproof or something like that? And Faultline's reason for doing this experiment seems to be she thinks she's going to need to be stronger in the future. And suddenly, Gregor attacks her, and he starts to choke her. He's very, very strong, and she's basically defenseless. And he gets to the point of, it seems like he's going to kill her, and it seems like he could have been able to kill her, but at the last second, as she's starting to pass out, he lets her go. And then he explains, I remember... You told me, the last time we talked about this, that some people theorize that one way you can overcome the Manton limit, how maybe other people have done it, is by having a second trigger event, another life or death kind of experience. And so I'm really sorry that I, had to do that, but I thought you would understand and I thought it would be necessary. And she's like, that was such a risky thing to do. What if it had worked? Like, I could have killed you. And he's like, I don't know, maybe you would have taken my arm off, but like, to like do that for you, I was willing to do that
Not
for you.
that great an arm, he says.
And Faultline is like, okay, well, like, that must have been hard for you, but like, I get it, right? Like, so they really are.
How
they
can
really
I be
are,
mad at you?
They really are on the same page, even though it was, it's very shocking for the reader. We can talk more about that whole interaction. And then Faultline says, well, okay, enough about what I was doing. I've actually gotten some intel that I think you'll want to hear. They have had kind of on the back burner, I guess, putting some feelers out to try and learn things. And we're reminded that Gregor and Newter both have this tattoo, kind of a C or a U on his arm. And it turns out Gregor and Newter don't know how they got these tattoos. In fact, they both have severe amnesia. They don't remember who they were before they woke up one day in a city in North America to find that they were monstrous capes. We learned that Gregor speaks Icelandic, but had to go to a language expert to kind of be like, hey, I understand this language, but I don't know, I'm in, Brockton Bay.
What language do I speak?
Yeah, what
tell
language?
Me.
Yeah, tell me. So he really doesn't know where he came from. And we learned that they are not alone. There are actually many capes in this exact same situation, most of which are also kind of like have monstrous physical forms. And what we learn is that Faultline kind of has this theory, or has this data that suggests we're still seeing people like you and Newter show up, but the frequency is getting less. And actually, we just saw this cape in Vegas, Shamrock, show up. And she is not monstrous in appearance at all, but her identical tattoo to yours was caught on the security camera. So what if it's not that the frequency of the incidents is going down, it's just the frequency of those people appearing monstrous is going down. And then there's another piece of the puzzle that comes in, which is there was a recent rumor about somebody dealing powers in a bottle. Something that you could drink to join the ranks of heroes and villains. And those bottles had a marker on them that is identical to the tattoo.
The case they came from, I think, had that marker on it. Yeah.
Yes, something like that. And unfortunately, that's pretty much a dead end. The person who shared the rumor was found dead shortly afterward. The dealer's nowhere to be seen. The other thing that we learn is that people who the dealer dealt to did not, get the tattoos as a result.
Right, so this isn't the main way that these tattooed names are showing up.
Yeah, and we'll talk about their speculation and kind of maybe if you have other theories, Jenny.
I have some theories.
Yeah, but then we end the chapter basically saying, hey, we have these puzzle pieces, monstrous capes appearing all around North America, but they're getting less monstrous over time. Powers in a bottle that are connected to the same symbol, whatever it is. And the best lead they have is this woman in Vegas, Shamrock. So after the contract with Coil has wrapped up, Faultline's crew is going to try and track her down, either for intel or maybe to recruit her. And that's where we leave things.
All right. So, Claire, you chose this interlude. Was this just like an interlude that's coming up and that's cool, or did you have specific reasons?
So I think when Ted and I originally talked about guests coming on the podcast, I think we talked about maybe we do interludes, guests come on the podcast. Now I know your first guest didn't come on an interlude, so I suppose I could have changed my mind. I was originally going to come on for the last interlude, Brutus's interlude, but then I switched to this one. I do really like both of them a lot. This one, I really like this interlude a lot, both because I like Gregor as a character, and Faultline's crew, as you said, is just so fun, and you just want to see more of them. I knew you would like them because they're obviously such a great found family, and that's something you like. But in addition to just really liking the character and then the characters of Faultline's crew, I think that this interlude is just such a great dive into themes that are in this arc that are so great about sort of like what makes somebody a monster, what makes somebody a human versus a monster, or what makes somebody monstrous, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, a lot more beyond that as well, like identity and how it relates to that question of monstrousness versus humanity, and how it relates to the question of like appearance versus substance, which you guys were just talking about in my headphones, just a few hours ago. I know you talked about it a while ago, but 2 podcast episodes ago, you mentioned Taylor cares a lot more about the substance versus the appearance, and maybe that does her a little bit of a disservice in terms of how she's coming across. But I think that question about appearance versus substance really comes up here again. I just think it's a really rich interlude. I just love it.
What did you think, Jenny?
Oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, Faultline's crew is so great. And they really have it together. I can see why Tattletale feels so defensive and is like, we've never messed up any jobs. They've messed up like 1 or 2. Because, I mean, Faultline seems like such a good leader. She's a great businesswoman. She has like multiple cover businesses around town. And there's a line in the chapter that's like, any employee who gets this far into the building is well paid enough to like not, rat her out. It seems like she's really good at keeping the people who work for her happy. Like she's the opposite of Kaiser, who like uses people up and burns them out. And like, she is, seems to be relatively morally neutral in terms of what her jobs are. Like she's just like for hire. But in terms of how she treats the people who work with her, she's very good at it. And it seems like I guess it's 5 of them. It's Spitfire, Labyrinth, Newter, Gregor, and then Faultline.
Yeah.
It seems like the 5 of them really like work together and support each other, like to a greater degree than we've seen with the Undersiders. Like the Undersiders still have some kinks to work out. They didn't have a heart for so long. Like, the way that the Undersiders deal with Bitch has been, like, really not great so far. Like, they're really struggling with that. And it doesn't seem like Faultline's crew has any major interpersonal issues like that. I mean, we've only seen them for, like, 5 minutes. But
yeah,
it seems like, Labyrinth is the most difficult member of the team, and they're doing a really good job of supporting her and accommodating her. And the Undersiders haven't reached that level of competency in dealing with Bitch. So
yeah, it's fascinating too because they're such a limited group. We know we got a little bit of Labyrinth's origin story, which was like when they were already a crew, right? And then we know that Spitfire was only a recent recruit because the Undersiders tried to, and get her, and they've only been around for so long. So it kind of suggests that like it was Faultline and then Faultline and Gregor and then Faultline, Gregor and Newter, and like they've only recently been kind of like building out that part of the family. So it's fun to kind of, I don't know, I like that it's such a small group, but also that we get so much history of how they've been like pulled in one at a time. And, or who knows, maybe there are other people that we haven't met yet, or people who left, it's remains to be seen.
Like we don't really have too much of a clear sense of the relationships among them. It seems like, from what we've seen, people get along. It seems like Newter and Gregor have a really nice friendship. It seems like, we see Emily and Elle, Spitfire and Labyrinth, sharing a room, which there's no reason they'd need to do that for space reasons. Like, presumably there's a lot of space in Brockton Bay. We know there are a lot of abandoned buildings. Like, if they wanted more space, they could probably have it. I bet that it's good to have someone in a room with Labyrinth to kind of help keep tabs on her. And it's really nice that Emily does that. I mean, I'm making leaps, but it seems like that is a choice that they made, at least either out of friendship or out of, care for Labyrinth, or, some combination of both.
One thing that I really loved is we got more like tantalizing details about what Faultline's crew had done in the past. There was like a toy box tinker, incident.
Underground.
And then Newter was bragging about how in Philly they went up against 2 of the other like city protectorate leaders. So they went up against Merton, head of the Protectorate in Chicago, and Chevalier, head of the Protectorate in Philly, and came out on top. Or at least they were able to run away, successfully completing their job.
Yeah, that counts. I love how Newter's like, we beat them, and Gregor's like, we managed to escape.
Yeah, he also says, and they are like very strong, smart, competent capes, because that's how they got promoted to those important positions. He's like fastidiously like polite and nice.
I loved Gregor. Yeah, and the contrast between Gregor and Newter was really fun.
Absolutely.
Like I like both of them a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's circle. We can circle back to Faultline and the crew and stuff like that. But since we're talking about Gregor, I love him so much. I was excited about the interlude, and I think I was excited more for like, oh, we get these new setting details and things. But like, he's such a good guy.
Yeah.
I love him so much. He's incredibly generous with his sandwiches. He's like everybody's doing their own thing, and it's dinner time. And nobody has a plan. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to get sandwiches. Even though I have to invent the concept of Uber Eats in order to do it. And then when I'm hanging out with Newter and the girls that are currently on his arm, the thing that he says, like, I regret not having a sandwich to share with you. You know, these sandwiches are spoken for. I have to bring them to my friends, but you can have some of my sandwich. And they're like, no, man. You know, but it's so nice. It's so good. Yeah. And there's so many moments that just show that he is kind, compassionate, scrupulous.
Yes.
Yeah.
He really seems to take a like measured, thoughtful approach to life. Like very, very practical in a low-key way. Like he's really thought things through. Like this whole thing, I loved opening with him looking for assistance. I mean, this is kind of what you were saying, Claire. This is exploring like, okay, if you are this sort of monstrous cape, to use the term that they use, it's like how do you navigate the world? Like what are the accommodations you can find for yourself? And like I have money and I like things to be convenient.
Yeah.
He's so good at boundaries.
Well, yeah, that was one thing I was thinking as I was reading this also is, I mean, to your point, Jenny, about Faultline being so good at organizing her crew and being good to them and being a good leader, I realized that not all of them are adults. Like Newter's a teenager. I think Emily's a teenager. Labyrinth or Elle is also young. No?
Yeah, we don't
Actually, I don't know if we know.
This. Exactly.
Yeah. I think I just assumed she was young, but she may just be,
blonde.
I don't remember if Gregor calls them both girls. Maybe he just called Spitfire a girl, but
yeah,
probably younger than Gregor is the vibe.
That was sort of the sense that I got. He says that she's blonde in a way that rarely lasts past puberty, like the real platinum blonde, but it's clear that it did last past puberty, and we have no idea how far past puberty she is. But I got the sense she's probably a young adult, if not a teen.
Good point. Well, anyway, what I was trying to say is, despite the fact that some of these members of Faultline's crew are young, they just have a much more grown up and just like adults way of being. Not all of the members, but like Gregor and Faultline in particular, and just the way the group is much more like grown up. And, Gregor says, it had taken him many years to kind of come to peace with this, which is just very, very different from like where Taylor and the Undersiders are. Yeah. Like they're very much teenagers. They have this teenage hangout.
It's kind of like a clubhouse, which is funny contrasted with, because you do have Brian, who has this really serious like adult purpose for being there to like get money and care for his sister, and it feels a little bit like an outlier situation in the Undersiders, because it is sort of like, yeah, we hang out, we have fun, like we're chill, and Lisa's sort of cops and robbers philosophy.
Yeah.
I was reading this, I was like, oh, I'm kind of bummed Taylor didn't end up with them. But I do think her plan would not have worked as well with Faultline. Like, her whole insinuation plan.
Oh.
I just, like, the Undersiders have been incredibly credulous when it comes to Taylor. Like, I remember when she originally joined the group, I was like, yeah, they'll probably have her in, like, a probationary status and see how she does with a mission. No. They're just like, you're cool, you're in, yeah.
Yeah, that's really
Here's the key to the clubhouse. And I wonder, I mean, Faultline, seems to be about rescuing people in a way, though she did recruit Spitfire, I guess, who didn't seem to be in a difficult situation. And I wonder if someone like Spitfire, someone like Taylor approaching her, if there would be any more vetting that would happen.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm curious for more of your take on like what's Faultline's deal, because she does seem to be in control. She seems to be the leader, and the thing that really jumped out to me is the way that she sets up, oh, Gregor, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've learned. She says something like, a while back, some of us decided to put our pay back into like chasing down these mysteries that were important to us. And since you, contributed the most, I'm going to tell you and not feel like I have to,
wait to tell the others
at the same time, which is such an interesting, like, the kind of idea that like they're all mercenaries and so they all get their cut, and then there's a process by which they can put some of that cut into like other things that benefit the team, but not everybody has to do it. Like you don't have to like pay your dues. Like it's such an interesting, I guess that also seems like a very mercenary way of dealing with things, even though it's such a personal mystery for Gregor and does seem to be something that Faultline is really invested in, even though we don't know like why she would be.
Yeah, that is interesting because the jobs that she takes on for the team are very like, I'll take whatever I can get money for. I mean, we don't know that she'll take anything, but maybe she'll take jobs that seem like a good bet, seem like good clients to work with or whatever. But this whole chasing down this tattoo situation is not a mercenary thing. Like that is like a very personal matter for her team members. Not sure if it's personal in the same way for her, but she's at least very, very invested in it.
And the tidbit of motivation that we get from her, just in the context of her science experiment, is she's like, what if I need this power someday? Right? She's like, I feel this need that in the future I need to be stronger.
Yeah.
Which is such an interesting, again, absent a like larger context, it's such an interesting like detail to think about.
It's also, again, such a contrast to anything we see on the Undersiders. Like, Lisa would definitely not, because, like, Lisa's very much like, I'm fine, I'm smug, I'm skating by on what I have. She's sort of got this, bravado thing. Brian has a very practical attitude towards, like, you gotta pick the fights you can win, and, there's no point in, like, perfecting your skills, just get them good enough, and that's what, will get you through. And Alec is lazy and won't even, like, practice self-defense. I think Taylor is the one with the attitude of, like, I need to understand how my power works as much as I can, and I need to make it as strong as possible. We haven't seen so much of that from her, because I feel like she's still exploring her power in a combat situation, but, like, she definitely is not, like, I feel like she's not a rest on her laurels type of person.
Yeah, we've already seen her, grow new ways of using her power, right, and adapt it, and I think a lot of that has been on the fly, no pun intended, but I think she also, she has her notebooks, like, she has all this planning and thinking that she does about like how to best use her power and everything. So I do see a lot of similarities between her and Faultline, actually, which makes it funny that Tattletale likes Taylor so much.
I feel like my Smugline theories have taken a blow from the fact that it seems like Faultline might be like a full adult.
She's in college, though. College textbooks.
Oh, no, you're right. There were college textbooks. Yeah. I mean, that could be because she's researching the Manton
may not
effect.
be that she's in college, but I love the idea of her being in college.
You're right. I could totally see her do it. She seems like a very high achiever. She could do college on top of all of this. But, okay, that, maybe she's just a few years older than Tattletale and it can still happen, because I love this.
It would be very funny if Faultline was, like, basically lying about her age, but in the way you wouldn't expect, where she's like pretending to be like 26 and she actually like finished college at like age 17 and now she's like 21.
I feel like that would track, honestly.
We know she's smart.
That would not be surprising.
Yeah.
She does seem, so like Gregor, again, he's very caring towards Labyrinth. He thinks of her in a caring way. He makes sure that she starts eating her sandwich, and then I think comments about her to Faultline, and
Faultline says something like, it's really hard not to grow attached to her. And Gregor just says, yes. And I was like, are they in love?
No, but to me, it was like Faultline is kind of like intellectualizing her feelings, right?
Oh,
She's sort of like, like, oh, like, what an inconvenience, or, like, she's like thinking about her feelings and not just feeling them.
Yeah.
Also very Taylor of her.
Yeah,
yes.
True.
It's very Tiffany Aching, the Terry Pratchett witch books. The second thoughts is like thinking about your own thinking, which is a witch attribute.
Yeah, we got a little bit like a description of her out of costume. She has sharp features and a ponytail.
I did have a startle moment where Gregor throws her on the desk and straddles her, and I was like, oh, are they lovers? Oh no, he's choking her out. Actually, this is fascinating because in Arc 5, we saw the Undersiders having a choke out, Brian was choking out Bitch. And this is happening, the tail end of the arc, and it is such a contrast to how it happens. It's more violent than the one with Bitch, but it is for such a generous reason.
That's such a good observation.
It's such a generous and well thought out reason where he's like, couldn't have told you, it wouldn't have worked. I was willing to potentially sacrifice parts of my body if you successfully slice them off for this thing you've been working towards for so long.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, talking about sacrificing parts of his body, the other contrast that I was thinking of with his attacking Faultline was Taylor's attacking Lung and carving out his eyes, because I think they're both sort of not caring for the appearances at all, just doing something for a purely utilitarian purpose, but for really what they are thinking of as this is the right and good thing to do. I don't care what it looks like at all. And he's, of course, willing to give up his hand, whereas Taylor takes somebody else's body parts.
Yeah, and I also think, similar to the assault on Lung, we get to see the consequences, or in this case, lack of consequences. Because his thinking is, I could give her what she wants. I could make her stronger. This would be such a good outcome. So I will do this awful thing. I will attack her. I will, almost kill her.
Yeah,
surprise
she's
her with
unconscious.
it.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't work, right? Which is sort of calls into question whether he made the right call. But Faultline forgives him.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, oh, I understand what you were doing. Which is, I guess, ultimately sort of validating that kind of it's both validating the kind of idea of a consequentialist worldview, but also showing that you're not always gonna get the consequences you want. You're not always going to be right about what's
and also
happen.
It matters if people are on the same page as you, right? And they're trusting your motives. The element of trust there is so important, right? Sundancer doesn't know Skitter, doesn't know Taylor at all.
Yeah.
Whereas Gregor and Faultline know each other and trust each other so much. One thing I do want to mention is that Faultline is only called Faultline. She's referred to as Faultline by Newter and then by Gregor, and even though she's out of costume, she's in her professional Faultline outfit where she's still Faultline, but she's the business side of Faultline instead of the power side of Faultline. I don't know, it's kind of interesting.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you think
I didn't even notice
Gregor doesn't know her name?
I think if
he just thinks of her that way.
Yeah, either he doesn't know her name or she doesn't like to be called by her name, and he just thinks of her as the name that she wants to be called by.
Right. That is so interesting.
I wonder also if it has to do with her coming to find Gregor and Newter, because they're people who just by necessity don't have a secret identity. They don't even remember their previous identities. And she seems sort of has completely subsumed any sort of secret identity just into her cape persona, sort of similarly to them, even though she's not a quote-unquote monstrous cape. And I think I would guess that she doesn't have the amnesia that they do, although I guess we can't say.
Yeah, it didn't sound from the way she was talking about it like she had the tattoo and the amnesia in that whole situation. But
it would certainly be really going through a lot of effort to be well, I'm not going to act on this information that I have, but as soon as I discover Shamrock, then I can be oh, I got this new thing, even though she could have been oh, I'm,
that would be so weird.
I also have the tattoo, but I didn't want to tell you guys.
Surprise!
It would be a cool twist, though. Yeah. That's a really good observation. I was also thinking since we circled back to Faultline, I thought it was really ironic that the experiment she was doing, where she's trying to find the boundary of the Manton effect, is like very, for someone called Faultline, it's a very ironic thing to be doing. She's like trying to figure out like what is the boundary between, you know, stuff that I can affect and what stuff that I can't affect.
And she's trying to cross that boundary.
Yeah.
There's so much interesting like theoretical stuff about powers in this chapter. So one of the things she says is like, this might just be in our heads. Like kind of the way it's hard for soldiers to shoot at humans. It might just be hard, like we might have like a mental block against using powers on people. From what we've heard about the Manton effect, it sounds like it's like a little bit too close to absolute for that. Like we know that one narwhal cape, like it doesn't apply to them, but it feels like if it were a psychological thing, people would have broken through it more often.
Yeah, and I think narwhal in particular is called out as like, at least evidence suggests that they were bound by it and then they found a way around it.
Yeah. And one of the possibilities is that a cape can have a second trigger event, which I feel like had kind of come up a little bit in my theorizing with like the idea of, you know, Taylor went through something really traumatic. Is that why she has better range with her bugs now? Like, I don't know that was a really strong theory of mine, but like, one of the things that I found interesting about the experiment that Gregor runs with Faultline is that the way they're talking about it, a trigger event kind of has to be a life or death thing. But that's not actually how the trigger events have worked that we have seen. Like, no one's life was in danger in Brian's or Taylor's events. I mean, you could say maybe Brian feared for his sister's life or his own life, but like, it didn't seem like he was afraid he was going to die. Like, and it didn't seem like Taylor was afraid she was going to die. They were really extreme events that like pushed them in certain ways. It's possible that Faultline could have a second trigger event. She wouldn't necessarily have to get closer to death. She maybe just needs some different ingredients for it.
I mean, yeah, Alec talked about heightened fight or flight instincts.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an adrenaline aspect to it.
Yeah, there's also close to death. This could also be, if Faultline didn't understand what was happening, the sense of, like, betrayal is part of it. Like, the sort of why, you know, you can't know about it in advance. She actually has to think that he might be, you know, coming for her. But yeah, that's really interesting.
Like, I feel like a really good trigger event, like, second trigger event for Faultline would be, like, having part of her own body sliced off.
Interesting.
Like, yeah. Like, someone captures her and takes a knife to her, you know, pinky finger or something and like cuts it. Like, I feel like that is the kind of thing that would like map thematically with her gaining the ability to slice flesh. Like, her power is slicing things, so like being able to slice organic living matter.
Yeah, that's interesting. That also makes me wonder, like, what was her actual trigger event like?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It's ironic that someone named Faultline has managed to create such a cohesive group.
Yeah.
The question about trigger events and traumas as they relate to power, I was also thinking about that as I read this chapter, because for Gregor and Newter, they don't remember how they got their powers. They've obviously suffered a huge amount of trauma as a result of what happened to them, you know, and the consequences that it had on their bodies. But it is very different from like what we've seen with the Undersiders and how those particular traumas are so central to their personalities and their powers and everything.
That's so true. And it's all hidden for them. Like, they don't have to tell anyone their trigger event. They don't have to tell anyone that they even have a power because it's all invisible. And here we have this like very opposite situation.
Ooh, yeah. That works really well thematically, actually. I like that a lot. Sort of the trade-off. Like, people don't know you have powers, but you have this sort of like inner, you know, this inner stuff that you're working through. Whereas, like,
right,
I mean,
theirs is all external, but that results in psychological
Newter, I mean,
trauma.
maybe there's more there. But Newter is like a great example of like, he woke up one day this way and he's having the time of his life. Like, he's found a great family, he's loving it, he's feeling happy, and Gregor's like a more
He did
worldly...
not say he's feeling happy.
Oh,
so they have this whole conversation
okay.
where Gregor's like, Newter, are you happy? And Newter's like, oh my gosh, don't go through another psychological or philosophical phase on me. And he's like, no, are you happy? And Newter's like, why wouldn't I be happy? I have all this great stuff. I'm living my best life. Did not answer the question. Yeah. She's like, maybe it's hard to answer that without feeling corny. Like, yes, I'm happy. Like, But I do wonder if there's some unhappiness there.
Yeah, or it's just, making it sound good, but everyone has the trauma of, like, having your past stolen from you, your history erased, by whatever means.
Yeah. And also, again, Gregor said it took him many years to kind of come to terms with, his appearance and what it means for him and everything.
Yeah. I was wondering, like, how did Newter, who's so powerful, end up on the streets? I mean, I guess he's literally thrown on the streets by whoever created his powers. Yeah. Wasn't betrayed by his family. Well, maybe he was in the past. He's forgotten. Who knows? But
I will just do a quick detour since we're talking about Newter, just to your original conversations about Newter. And I think in the second episode that you talked about Newter, you came to the conclusion that, like, oh no, touch-starved Newter, like, he's, he can't touch anybody because he has drugs on his skin. And I had that thought on the first episode, which gave me the idea for a very cursed ship, which is, I can't think of a better name than, like, Glory Newt. I feel like there has to be a better name. But, like, she has, like, a thin, impervious layer all over her. Yes! She doesn't get affected by the bugs.
That's amazing.
That's the saran wrap!
And they're both really, like, flashy and everything. So I don't know. I feel like it could work.
I feel like they would really get along. Newter is such a, like, friendly, personable guy. Like, he's so excited to have these girls for company. He has this whole thing worked out where he, like, sells these, like, very diluted versions of his drug, which I love. Like, he talks about it. He's like, it's not addictive. There are no side effects. You literally can't overdose. I've tried to make people overdose and it doesn't happen. Like, this, I can measure this exact amount.
That he knows. I guess I buy a fatal overdose is unlikely. Like, I don't necessarily know that it's, it's not, there aren't other side effects.
I'm not going to say that he knew when he started doing this that there weren't other side effects. It kind of sounds like he has this down at this point. I'm willing to trust his patter at this, like, it sounds like this is a thing
I don't think that Newter is quite as, thorough as Faultline in his testing is my guess.
That does sound likely.
But maybe Faultline has gotten him to test it. I would imagine that Faultline also likes to test Faultline crew's powers.
His point probably still stands, compared to the other drugs you could be doing that are this potent. It is probably observably true that there are fewer immediate obvious side effects.
Yeah.
That's probably disputable.
I mean, it seems like a great situation, yeah.
I really like the detail of how he applies his saliva because, I mean, again, poor tough-starved Newter, if he were to, make out with this girl who's into him.
Which is what I thought was going to be happening when he was like, this whole, like, balcony full of, like, unconscious people, mostly girls. I was like, this is how Newter hooks up. Not so much, unfortunately.
But I think what we learned is that if he did, he would potentially give people way too much and they'd be out for way too long, much more than just, a few hours at the club or whatever. So he gets a serving of water, just a tiny serving of water into a spoon, and then dips his tongue in it. So it's the, like, maximum infusion of Newter spit into a limited quantity of water. And that's how he does the dosing, which is a really fun...
Just the tiny touch of his tongue.
Really fun detail. I do think that he is probably enjoying himself a lot right now, but I think I agree with Gregor that, like, the sort of, like, seeds of long-term happiness are not there in this current situation. And he's
like 16, so makes sense. Which is an age at which he could date Taylor.
No, that's true. But, if he's at least seems to be...
They could kiss through a thin layer of bugs.
Oh, no.
Oh, the wings of a butterfly.
Well, that would definitely kill that butterfly.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Newter seems to have the attention of as many attractive girls his own age as he wants, which is, like, maybe not that conducive to a monogamous situation.
Right, it's not real companionship. It's not real connection. Yeah.
But, I don't know. Like, I do wonder if he, like, this seems like a situation where you could catch feelings for someone, and it would be like tough. Like I'm worried about the sustainability of the situation for Newter.
This romance where Newter falls for someone, and then they have to figure out, like, is there any way to make the relationship work? Yeah. It's really tough. Like, what a great obstacle.
Yeah. I think overall, reading this chapter, I felt like the overall like potential skeeviness of the situation was pretty low, just based on Newter's kind of like charming and like kind of naive personality. He seems to be along for the ride, but there's no, like Gregor's like, oh, so did you make a bet with them? So like if they lose the bet, they're gonna have to pay more, like something like coercive, and like Newter's like, no, like nothing like that.
Just like if they won the bet, they wouldn't have to pay. Yeah. He does seem to be in a position of like, he's being generous. Yeah. Having fun, but not exploiting anyone. So I want to talk about this thing where capes are being created artificially and dumped on the streets. I mean, we don't literally know that that's happening. Like, that is the sort of obvious takeaway from what Faultline says at the end. So there's the dealer in Florida who I guess is charging $35,000. You'll get a thing to drink and it will give you a power. And the theory is that he has stolen that technology from the people who developed it and is using it to make money, but he's not giving the tattoo, so he's not the main operation.
Yeah.
I have to assume it's the government. Like, that just seems like what it would be. I would say probably not the Protectorate themselves, though maybe there are upper-ups at the Protectorate who know about it. But it seems like probably whatever, like, department of the government, like, sponsors the Protectorate, like, also has this going on. The Protectorate are very, like, they're heroes. They don't need to know about the dirty stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Like, they, the government doesn't need to dirty the hands of their, like, heroic figureheads. Or, I mean, they're not just figureheads. They're actually fighting villains. But, like, they're heroic, inspiring, figures. Yeah, in the meantime, they're trying to figure out how to actually harness this parahuman power, how to control it. I mean, that seems like a thing that the government would want to do, to control it. Yeah. To give it to the people who they think deserve it. At this point, presumably, they're just experimenting on people, and because it's still risky enough that they're not bestowing it upon upon themselves or, their allies. But yeah, I mean, of course, they, like, if the government didn't have a program like this, I'd be like, why not? What are they doing? Like, of course they do. Like, it would be so weird if they didn't.
Would there... Well, I don't know. I guess I would say, like, my question for you is, like, what would the program be, given that what we know of powers so far is that you get them from having some traumatic experience?
Yeah, I mean, it is possible. I mean, there are several unknowns. The government, or at least Cape scholars, theorize that about 1 in 5 people have the ability to get a power. That could be based on something environmental they've been exposed to, like something chemical in their bodies, like something in their DNA. Something about your body makes you capable of doing that. Your body or your brain or some, combination thereof. Yeah. And possibly there's like something you can drink that would create that, like make you one of those potential people. But do you then need to have a trigger event? Because that's not happening with the guy in Florida, the dealer who's like giving you the drink.
Right.
And so what is it in the drink that is mimicking what the trigger event does? Maybe what the trigger event does is also, something chemical, and they've figured out how to artificially produce it. The amnesia is weird because I don't know, like, do they also just independently have the ability to create amnesia? Or is it that what they give you to drink wipes out your memories somehow? That didn't seem to be happening with the dealer in Florida. At least I don't think it was mentioned, so I don't know. Maybe they also just want to erase your memories because they don't have to deal with these capes. Like, what, are they going to support them forever? And they also don't want the capes to know what happened. So maybe there's a second thing they do that erases your memories. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have any thoughts? We could also just come back to this as like a prediction, but like, what does this do to your impression of like, where the story might go in the future? Like, is it just fun setting knowledge?
Oh my gosh, no, I think we're gonna have to find out. Like, this seems like... This is like a big question of the world, right? And it could be possible for a story like this to not deal with it. To just be like, powers arose, and now people have them, and this is a story about those people who have the powers. But because we're getting into this origin stuff, I do think the story is going to continue exploring it. And I think there's going to be... I think that the stakes of the story, like what Taylor needs to accomplish in the story, are going to be really connected to this. It is... I mean, we've talked already about how dangerous powers are. If the government has the ability to bestow them where they want, that's potentially really dangerous. That's a lot of power to put in the hands of some elected officials or, you know, not even elected officials. It seems like the kind of thing where if this is the government, if they do master this power, what they'll want to do is create basically an army to take down villains. And, I mean, maybe that making me think maybe the Protectorate is more involved. But, yeah, so it could be that if Taylor finds herself in the position of being a government-recognized villain, she is going to have to fight the government-created capes.
Yeah.
That could be where the story is going.
We also have in this chapter Faultline and Gregor demonstrating just like even just as two people the lengths that they will go to for more power.
Yeah.
And I think that fits really nicely with kind of your speculation of like, well, of course people will be trying this stuff.
Tanner who was saying that like it would really suck to be in this world and not have a power. And yeah, so of course people would pay $35,000 just for the chance of getting a cool power because being powerless would be pretty scary.
Yeah.
Like, other people have guns and you can't even buy one.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh.
Would you guys pay $35,000 to get a superpower? You don't know what it's going to be beforehand, I guess.
I mean, it sort of depends a lot. Like, I feel like if I have all the information that Gregor has in this chapter, the answer is obviously no. Like, it seems like maybe the worst case here is I lose my current self and wake up with amnesia on the street. Not saying, like, there's some suggestion that that's different from what happens to the deal, you know, but, like, it's sort of like, I'm more likely to do it the less I know about what has happened to other people who are involved in the whole situation. So, like, that's just kind of a, like... And I don't think I'm the kind of person who's going to be like, oh, like, hey, I've got this new super drug. Like, you've never heard of it before, but trust me, you know, like, the burden of proof for that level of trust.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like something I would do. But it would be so alluring, this idea, because, like, it's sort of like, you know, we grew up reading, like, cool fantasy stories, and you're like, well, you could be one of those people in those stories.
But, like,
it'd be hard to resist.
Jenny, if you said, oh my god, I just, you know, drank this bottle and now I, you know, can make, you know, glue shoot out of my fingers or whatever, you know, you're gluey girl. And then you're like, I've got another bottle.
Obviously glue gun.
You've got another bottle, try it. Then, but like maybe if I see the evidence with my own eyes and it's not that bad, I would go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if...
Maybe I'd be honey trapped.
I think even if you thought, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to have all the drawbacks of amnesia or like completely quote unquote monstrous appearance or whatever. I mean, I think, as you said, Ted, based on what we know now and based on at least what like Newter was saying, and I think this was definitely something that came up a lot this arc, is just the potential drawbacks, right? Whether it's internal or external, I don't know. Seems like a big risk.
I was thinking Labyrinth is the only person we've seen who wasn't, as far as I know, created by this program, this tattooing program, whose power affects her in such a way that she can't lead a normal life.
What about Bitch?
That's right. Yeah. You're right. I forgot about that. Thank you. You got that.
All right.
Well, I mean, I didn't hear your conversation from the last chapter, but I did actually reread it just to bridge between the episode that I just heard and this one. I do think it is relevant, though, to what this chapter brings up, with more looking at Labyrinth and what's up with her and the support structure that her team provides around her, as well as, you know, more directly dealing with Gregor and Newter and how they don't necessarily seem to be affected cognitively, but they are affected physically, right? And I guess the question of like the comparison that Gregor draws with disability, I think, is really interesting as well, because you could say that Labyrinth and Bitch both have disabilities, maybe Gregor and Newter as well in some way, or at least he's comparing himself to somebody with a disability when he's dealing with that.
Right. He brings up the devotees is the term that he uses. That's
I didn't
sort
know
of like
that term.
This woman, he's suspicious and sort of thinks like she's fetishizing me.
Yeah.
And because she doesn't know me, right? So like...
Right. And Newter's like, maybe she just likes who you are. And Gregor's like, she doesn't know me enough to... It reminds me, I mean, I was reflecting, like, reading that, like... in a sense, the way that Gregor is talking about, like, she sees the outside of me and it represents something to her, and she's, like, seeking, like, some sort of dynamic that she thinks will be there based on the way I look. And I was like, in a sense, that's common in a lot of types of dating, you know, like you see some, like, attractive man and you're like, like, that he will hold this role in my life and therefore I'm attracted to him. And it's so sad that Gregor, like, you know, that attractive man is probably happy to use that, like, first impression, like, assumptions people make about him to, like, sleep with people. I mean, not all of them would be, but, like, the fact that the assumptions that people make about people with disabilities are such that Gregor's like, no, I don't want any piece of that.
Yeah.
It's of a piece with what he said right at the beginning of he doesn't feel like relying on his friends for things is conducive to friendship. You know, he doesn't want people, especially people he's in a close relationship with, to kind of look at him as less than they are.
Yes.
And that is his particular, you know, preference and feeling, clearly a very strong feeling that probably has come from a lot of history and working on how he thinks of himself and himself in relation to other people.
Yeah, and presumably based on a lot of previous experience.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, we don't get any sense of this, but I could definitely see someone in Gregor's shoes being very, very, very online. Like, wanting to form relationships in a context where no one can tell what you look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that is something he does at all. We don't get any sense that he has an online life in this chapter. He seems to be very invested in his connections with the team, which is probably, you know, maybe healthier than focusing too much on an online social life at the expense of a real world one. But yeah, I could imagine that being a place that people would go for that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. That's a good thought. I think also the discussion of disabilities and, like, Gregor and Newter having such an outwardly visible difference to them, alien appearance, monstrous appearance, whatever people say about them. I think there's a little bit of a, I don't know if Wildbow is getting at this at all, but I think the fact that there are sort of visible and invisible disabilities seems relevant here because, like, all of these people with powers, they may have drawbacks or they may not. They may be disabled or different from, you know, non-parahumans in various ways, more or less visible.
Yeah, and one thing we did talk about in the last episode was just kind of the difference between someone like Taylor who can pass as unpowered in normal society, which is not the case for either Newter or Labyrinth.
And Bitch, who manages to pass as not having her power affect her cognitively, but at the cost of just coming across as really aggressive and, like, you know.
Right.
She passes as a very aggressive and unpleasant person, which is not maybe, you know, who she would choose to be in all ways.
The other really interesting mention of that in this chapter was Gregor focusing on, like, even if I cover up my, like, translucent skin that's covered with, like, acne-like barnacles, the fact that I am so much heavier than
just, like, enormous,
a normal person, right? He uses the term morbidly obese. And he sort of says, like, people looking at me, like, have that fat phobia reaction before they even know that I'm a monstrous cape. And, like, that is also a very, like, real, it's very psychologically real, and it, like, directly is connecting to this theme of, like, being judged a certain way just based on how you look and kind of having to live in that world and make accommodations for yourself, like he's doing by not having to go into stores, and also the way that it kind of, you know, in Gregor's case, leads him to, like, hold himself at a distance from people who are not already kind of vetted as his people. Yeah.
I noticed there was a line in that paragraph about how people would perceive him as morbidly obese. It was like, I think it was like, it's one of the few things that you're, like, still allowed to openly critique people for in the, you know, the modern day. And it made me really nostalgic. Because I do feel like that was sort of a perception of, like, you know, 10, 15 years ago of, like, you know, it's sort of narrowing the things that you're allowed to be prejudiced about. And this is, like, you know, being gay is the last great bastion of, like, people can make fun, or, like, being fat is, like, the last. And I feel like that rhetoric has really been disproven. Like, I feel like the like, it has become much more acceptable for on many topics to make fun of people in the mainstream, but also we've sort of realized, like, okay, maybe we were being a little bit optimistic when we thought that, like, it wasn't acceptable to make fun of people for XYZ, like, characteristics.
Well, I think it was actually,
so that
it was less
very...
acceptable for a time and has become more acceptable again, at least.
I think both things. I think it has become more acceptable again, but also there were still a lot of people doing it, even when it was, like, less acceptable, in a way that, like, want to be like, oh, only evil people are racist. They're like cartoon villains who are racist. And it's become clear that, no, there was a lot of that going on all along, but also it's, you know, entered the mainstream a little bit more.
Yeah.
So.
I did like also that we get that interaction where he's going into the club and it seems like he's cutting the line and the people are like yelling at him and insulting him based on his size, and then the bouncer is like, oh no, he's the owner's brother, quote unquote.
You're banned.
And you guys are now banned from the club. Get out of line.
And Gregor's like chuckling to himself. He's like, that's a lie. I'm not the owner's brother. But, like, it's nice to see them get, you know,
which was so satisfying. It doesn't address the larger cultural issues on display. But yeah, it's awesome that Palanquin has Gregor's back.
I also thought the line, but it was nice to see one of the assholes getting what was coming to them. That felt very Taylor also. I mean, I think, you know, like wanting to see assholes get what they deserve and see justice.
And that's actually, it's very nice because Gregor is so nice. He's such a nice guy. And he's still like, oh yeah, those assholes, they're going to get what they get.
You know what I want now? I don't think this is going to happen. I want Taylor to use her ill-gotten gains to hire Labyrinth's crew to take out the bullies.
Oh my god.
Like, not kill them, but figure out how to keep them from being a problem. Yeah. Oh, did I say Labyrinth's crew? Faultline's crew, yes. Yeah, Labyrinth would not be as good a leader as Faultline, I think.
Yeah, and I will just say, I mean, speaking of the bullies, I know that this was an arc where they really featured prominently, and I think that's, you know, related to this theme of, like, what makes somebody monstrous, right? Like you guys talked about back in the school chapter, right? Yeah. And that appearance versus substance.
Right. Emma is the polar opposite of Gregor, right? Gregor is the nicest man in the world, and Emma is the meanest, and their appearances tell a different story.
Right. Yes. Yeah, no, I think that is going to be, like, that's a great, you know, metaphor for how we're going to learn that the heroes all suck, but they get all the adulation, and Taylor's going to be, you know, nobly standing up for what's right, but everyone's going to think she's horrible and evil. And I'm going to be so mad about it.
I do want to just highlight one thing in the text that really, I feel like, plays with the whole, like, evil-looking person is evil, like, assumption, which is right when he attacks Faultline and you're reading it and you're like, what is happening? There's this whole thing about, like, beneath his skin, which was tougher than one might guess, his skeleton, muscles, and organs all sat in a sea of viscous fluids. His skeleton, he learned, was more like a shark's than a human's.
So cool!
It was a flexible cartilage that bent where bone would break and healed faster than bone. He'd been hit by a car and climbed to his feet shortly after. So it's like, he's such a monster!
My favorite part was how, like, kicking him felt like kicking a waterbed and was, like, actually pretty much the same. And I was like, I understand now. I understand his power. He has waterbed power.
Yeah, I love that moment, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, though, that the whole, like, oh, he's got, like, shark bones is, like, he's being, like, ruthless and, like, trying to kill Faultline. Ooh. But actually, it turns out he's not at all, right?
Yeah. He's actually being super self-sacrificing and generous.
I was wondering, because you said you sort of got thrown because you had your shipping goggles on.
Well, I think it was there was like a straddling line. Yeah, I was like, whoa, what? Whoa.
Right, but so I was wondering, did that moment hit for you? Like, was Gregor convincingly enough of a good guy that you were like, there must be more to the story? Or did you have a moment of shock? Did you fall into the trap of like, oh, it turns out he was a monster, you know, which is kind of what the moment is setting up?
I don't think that's what I thought. I think it was one of those, like, that's weird. What else is going? Like, something's going on. What is it?
Yeah. Because I feel like that's what the moment is doing. Like, it's a moment of Gregor knows what he's doing, but we don't get it until the explanation afterward. And so I think the intended effect on the reader is like shock, surprise. You're more like in Faultline's head, and it's, I think, testing your allegiance to Gregor in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I thought that he was evil. I mean, I definitely didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. He's such a good, I mean, he's so generous with his sandwiches. You know there's going to be something. There's going to be some reasonable explanation.
So since we're at the end of Arc 5, thinking about Hive, just to get back to the sort of like found family thing, right? Like we see all these different villain organizations, and not just villain organizations, but like the school, right? Like organizations, I guess I should say, and collections of people, and how they're more or less, functional or happy or part of society, like mainstream society or not, right? I don't know if that's what Hive is getting at necessarily, but I think it's one of the things is that we see all the villains come together, and then we see these different villain groups. Like we see how Kaiser works with his group, as you were saying, Jenny. I think just also
the Palanquin is Faultline's crew's Hive.
Yeah. I guess they sort of kicked the Hive of the ABB.
I was just thinking they kind of kick the Hive and all the villains swarm out and we get to see,
But also, I mean, the school, which is where Taylor, that has been the organization that she's been part of, and she's sort of getting pushed more and more to switch to, really having the Undersiders or even just like the villain Cape community as how she thinks of her community, right?
Yeah, she's forming a community with people she's still actively planning to betray, which is incredibly short-sighted.
Oh, and that's such another fun thing, right? Because, like, this is a total fake betrayal that Gregor does of Faultline, right? So it is sort of like a betrayal thing. Yeah, but Faultline's like, well, I guess I understand why you did what you did. You're all good.
She, like, understands it kind of right away, almost.
I guess that is kind of not too different from what you're predicting, Jenny, right? That, like, Taylor will be like, I was going to betray you, and this is why, but, like, I don't know.
I'm not. Yeah. Well, once bitch is her best friend, that's not going to work anymore. I did have a random note, which is, supervillains are great for the economy. Look at Gregor, this kid who's going to be his new assistant, who wants to go to college in the fall. He doesn't want to work 50 hours a week at a minimum wage job. He can run errands for Gregor and get $400 each time. Gregor is stealing money from the corporations and recycling it to this kid who now gets to go to college and have money in his pocket.
Who gets to be not part of the 50% unemployed or whatever it is that you all called out.
Exactly. He's employed by Gregor.
The Palanquin seems like a really fun place to hang out as like a money laundering operation for Faultline.
Oh, and this is such a contrast. I mean, you were skeptical of Newter's claims about his, biological drug, his due.
I'm just saying he's not Dr. Newter. If he did go to medical
16.
school, he doesn't remember.
But there's a huge contrast between what Newter is doing, illegally selling his, body drugs, and claiming, at least, like, credibly to me, I suspect he at least thinks he's telling the truth, and he probably is, that this is a way to, like, get high and not have any of the bad side effects, in contrast to what we saw in the previous arc with Taylor's thoughts on drugs and, like, what the ABB is doing, what those other people whose names I've forgotten are doing, like, what we know Kaiser is selling drugs, like, the damage that they're doing to the town. And it contrasted with, like, Faultline has these great businesses and Neuter's selling, like, harmless drugs, and it's great.
I mean, what a motive to get rid of Newter, though. Like, that's really...
Well, I mean, he's got...
I hope he's thought of that.
But he's sort of, by necessity, a small-scale operation.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he could try to sell his, like, spit more widely, but he seems to want the personal interaction.
Right.
So
when Kickstarter comes out, he's going to be, like, the top...
Patreon.
So this is a question I have scientifically about Newter's power, which is how long does it stick around, right? Like you're saying he could sell it more widely. Like if he suspends it in water, can he then just like sell bottles of it? Will they be shelf stable?
That's
like,
what I was thinking. Yeah.
Because he also just like crawls on walls and like walks around all the time. Like he's getting his fluids around. Like why are not more people in Brockton Bay just like keeling over, just, touching a wall as they walk down the sidewalk?
Question. Maybe it's like when it dries, it's not effective anymore. But, like, I guess you would get some sweat on walls when you climb on them.
I'm just imagining him at, like, a stadium event that he's booked out, and, like, people are holding out their hands, and he's running, but he's shooting his newt tongue out and, like, slapping all their hands, as quickly as possible.
Tongue on one side, tail on the other, right? So he can just...
Yes. Tail or tongue. Maybe that's the ship name.
I'm happier about Newtbug. Yeah, well, so Newtbug in the shipping betting market going way up, but whatever Newter Gregor had going on.
No, sadly they are not in love and
Torpedoed.
did not get matching tattoos. They got tattooed by the same evil government organization.
Yeah.
But Newtbug, he's like 16. This is completely feasible. They still won't be able to touch, but yeah.
There were some other fun, just little lore details. We don't have to dwell on them, but we learned that Capes have put casinos out of business, but Vegas has other action, other games now, which is something to do with Shamrock and her presumed luck-based powers, which was very cool. There's a beetle man. Presumably this is the aforementioned Scarab.
Oh,
Fun
yeah.
little detail to connect.
Oh, I didn't connect that.
We also learn about a new group, the Dragon Slayers.
Yeah. Who steal Tinker stuff from, like, the greatest Tinker ever.
Yeah.
Who isn't named. We don't know who that is.
Very intriguing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did really love, we didn't go into detail on it, but Labyrinth's origin story, where they were breaking into this asylum, like mental hospital place, to talk to someone who had information about the Dragon Slayers, and things went into lockdown for a few hours, which was a big problem because Labyrinth needed to keep being moved so her power wouldn't affect the environment outside of her room. Which, like, man, that must have been an exhausting, job for that hospital. But they ended up just, bringing her with them, recruiting her.
Yeah. And that fills in a little bit. Neuter had said, we got you out of that place.
That's
and
right,
now we learn
Thank you for reminding
more,
me. What she creates is prettier now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just so intrigued. The thing about her, power level fluctuations, we got, that was mentioned again. I think Newter had alluded to it. And then the thing about how, if she stays in one place, she gets more and more control over her environment. That's also just a fascinating, I don't know. There's so many dynamics about her power that just make me really intrigued to see more from her.
We also had the amazing line that, Gregor's really sad about the fact that when she's most herself, she has no power.
Yeah.
Sort of this pitting herself and her power against each other, only, it's a zero-sum game.
Yeah, and I think you phrased it as the longer she is somewhere, the more control she has over environment. But it almost sounds like she doesn't have control. It's just spreading, of its own volition almost, right?
Right.
And I think that's an interesting contrast, or at least just another interesting detail, given Faultline's attempts to really control her power, right?
Yes, good point. There's such an interesting give and take between ability and disability in this chapter and in powers in general. Powers are abilities. They are a supernatural, parahuman, ability that make you, the word power implies that, it makes you more powerful than other people. It's something you can do.
A power fantasy as well.
Yeah, something you can do that other people can't. But with that, when do they cross the line from ability to disability? And sometimes it coexists. With Bitch, she has this ability that is also a disability, basically.
Yeah.
Her ability to communicate with dogs has given her this disability in communicating with people. And
it's also such a good, it's such a smart conceit for this kind of story, because it's narratively more satisfying to have people where there are trade-offs.
Yeah.
Just in terms, forgetting about the theme of it, right? The fact that Labyrinth's power isn't just I'm an amazing, for lack of a better word, I'm an amazing psychic who can control my environment and make people see things anytime, and I can do all of these awesome, amazing things. And the fact that she is limited makes it's just so much more interesting to think about how, when we see Capes in Wild Bow's world fighting each other, they're just the interactions are more narratively interesting because of those challenges.
it's interesting, actually, that power does not automatically come with that cost in this world. For most of the Undersiders, it doesn't have a cost. It has, I guess,
Right.
a psychological cost in that they had to go through something terrible to get it, but they had to have one bad day. And maybe that's downplaying what some of them have gone through, but they can use their powers at basically no cost to themselves. We saw a little bit, if Alec overuses his, eventually it will hurt him. But one of the things, like when you're designing a magic system, it's like, okay, what limits the like ability that people have? Like, does it take energy? Like, can you only do so much magic and then you get tired? Or do you need ingredients? Or, you know, do you need like very special training? Is it like if you do it slightly wrong, it'll explode? And like in a world like this, it's more like, well, you just have a very narrow range of what you can do.
Yeah.
But now for some people, it's like you have a narrow range and it comes at this cost to your life, your ability to navigate the world in sort of a neurotypical way, or like without people being disgusted by you, or, you know, there are all these different types of costs, but they're only applied to certain people. So there's still the sort of this flexibility of like, Taylor doesn't really have a cost to her power except what she had to go through to get it. Like, she paid the cost up front and now she has it, and we haven't really seen yet. Like, she was worried in the last chapter, like, is there something wrong with me I don't know about? But we haven't seen any active drawbacks for her.
That's really interesting. Yeah, and I mean, there's also kind of a like, there's the question that is raised by Faultline in this chapter of kind of like, yeah, well, you know, it seems like maybe you were in an early batch of experimentation and like the experiments have been getting better. Yeah. And there's this kind of idea that part of the project is like,
eliminate
can
the
we
cost.
give people powers without these costs?
Yeah.
And it's and we learned kind of demographically there are more villains than heroes, and
there are people who don't have to pay the cost for their powers. People like Glory Girl who like come from wealth, you know, quote unquote.
That's right. Yeah,
they inherit their powers,
yeah,
and then they don't have to pay any cost, really.
Yeah.
She had to get fouled in gym class, like.
Yeah, but it's just fun to see the different ways that powers, we're getting a more nuanced understanding of powers that is thematically connected into, we've been talking a lot about disability. You just mentioned sort of like privilege, family privilege. Yeah. Or we also learn like people who have money, who can just like buy a power, right?
Yeah, apparently, though, the risky.
Well, right, yeah, I think it would be risky, but who knows? Yeah, so it's just really fun to have the details of the setting kind of be naturally embedded in all that rich thematic stuff. Yeah. It's great.
One thing I'm realizing about Faultline's whole situation with her crew and stuff, we don't really get moral compromises in this chapter. Possibly there are some in how they live their lives, but this isn't one of those things where it's like, ugh, and they have to do these terrible things, but like, it's kind of the best they can do. Like, it just kind of seems like everything's great in this nightclub. Like, it might not be the whole story, but like, this isn't like a two sides of the story type of chapter.
Yeah, and Gregor's absolutely the kind of person who would be like, and the awful compromise I make by working for Faultline, but it's the best that I can do. You know, like, he would definitely
he doesn't seem to be thinking
getting
that.
all philosophical about it, as Newter would say. But instead we get this incredibly touching moment where he like explains,
you've done so much for me.
Yeah, he explains in detail, like, sure, what's an arm when you've done so much for me? Yeah. And then Faultline is like processing it. She's like, oh wow, like that must have been really hard for you. Which is like such a weird thing to say after someone's
he
almost
attacked
killed
her.
You. Yeah, and then he just kind of like nods. He's like,
it was.
Yeah, it was hard for me, you know. But I suffer in silence. I love him so much.
So great. Yeah, I did want to talk also, just circling back around, I guess it's sort of related to the appearance versus substance thing, but just going further on like the issue of trust versus deception, because I think like part of the difference between Newter and Gregor that we were talking about earlier is a little bit of maybe like a self-deception versus like really being open and honest with yourself about like what's up with you and everything. And I mean,
teenager versus adult in some ways.
Right. Yeah. And just
which connects to what you were saying about these are adult characters, like at least Gregor and Faultline.
For sure. But like just to think about Gregor versus Taylor, since I think it's always worth just continuing to compare the interlude characters with Taylor. Gregor is completely like open, honest with his team, with himself. Taylor,
with his
not
assistant
so much.
Candidate.
Taylor, you know, is definitely lying to her team, obviously. She's lying to herself about how much she wants to betray them and what else is going on with her and everything. And I did just want to point out there was a line that I noticed on this read-through that was, Palanquin had no need for such deceptions, right? So like talking about a lot of clubs will have a line going out the front door to make it look like they're busy. What you see is what you get with these guys, right?
Yeah, what a great point. Yeah.
And we first learned about Faultline's crew because that scumbag in Interlude 2 says, like
those freaks.
Yeah, the woman with the freaks or whatever. Like, that's kind of how, they're broadly perceived. But yeah, they're great.
They don't need to hide what they are.
An aspirational crew.
Yes. But I wonder if Taylor will end up allied with them in some way. Like, they're so great. I really want them. I want them, and I want Sundancer.
Super group.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they end up, facing off against the government, it's not going to be like the Undersiders versus the entire government. Like, they're going to need a coalition. You got to kick Kaiser out of the coalition, so you got to have other strong people.
All right, well,
Arc 6.
I think that's it. Let's get into Arc 6.
What's it called?
The next arc is called Tangle.
Tangle? Well, that's not a bug word at all.
Not really. Yeah, I don't think so.
Sounds like things are going to get thorny for Taylor. Tangle. I mean, I feel like she's really tangled herself up with her, web of lies.
Yeah.
So I wonder if any of them will start tripping her up. If any of her deceptions will be uncovered, either by the Undersiders or by her dad, which I did predict a little bit. Like, if she has this bruise that can't be covered up, he might get suspicious. He might start asking some questions.
Yeah.
So I think Taylor will end up getting, the various elements of her life will get more tangled with each other in this chapter, like the super villain side and the family side and the school side. I think it's all going to get more intertwined.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm still expecting Emma to be suspicious and find out that she has a power. I'm still expecting Danny to get suspicious and start asking more questions.
See more of Emma, see more of Danny.
Obviously
we'll see more of the heroes. Is your go-to.
No, I'm not predicting that this time. If I don't predict it, that means
no
we
more
will.
Heroes.
Yeah, and I think that stuff with the ABB will, in fact, get worse.
Yeah, we'll see that blowback.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well,
maybe this is the arc when she'll get blinded.
Could happen. We have a new cape name.
Okay.
Genesis.
I mean, sort of my first thought is they can create things from nothing, which seems like a very general, broad power, and perhaps a little bit too broad to exist in this world.
What kinds of things?
I guess what kinds of things, broad, if it's not fully broad. I kind of want them to be able to create creatures.
Ooh.
Like animals or something. That just feels be part of Genesis.
On the first day I created.
Exactly. Yeah.
80s music.
No, exactly. Yeah, you can create animals out of nothing. You can make a killing in the agricultural sector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good combos with Taylor.
Create
or
bugs.
Bitch.
Yeah. Create dogs.
And the first line of Arc 6.
I feel like it would be a really bad idea to use Bitch's power on an untrained dog, though.
That's a great
Bitch's power is very different from Taylor's power.
She's good, but she's not that good. Yeah. And the first sentence of Arc 6 begins, I squared off against a very thin.
A very thin Brian. I mean, she could be doing more training with Brian. I don't know why it would be a very thin, tall man. He's also not very thin. He's pretty built. Very thin. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a piece of notebook paper or something. Like how the squealing was a mall loudspeaker. Yeah.
A very thin mall.
A very thin pile of homework that I hadn't completed. You'd probably want it to be thick. Well,
thankfully it's thin. Yeah, exactly. Good stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Claire, it was such a pleasure to have you on our podcast.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for getting me into Worm.
Yeah.
The true origin.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's always a great reminder that what you guys do is not as easy as it looks.
I think we had a lot of fun.
No. I mean, I'm just saying that as a compliment to you. Talking is hard.
Oh, okay. That's fair. Yeah.
And you're very good at it. And it was great to talk with you.
And so are you. It was great to have you.
We appreciate it. The compliment and having you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that gets us to the end of the episode. So until
Arc 6.
Next time.
On Inchworm.
Something like that. I don't know.
Worm is a web serial by J.C. McCrae. You can read Worm at parahumans.wordpress.com and support the author at patreon.com/wildvote. Follow us on Tumblr and Blue Sky at Inchworm Podcast, or find our Discord link and any other updates on inchwormpodcast.com.